ladies and gentlemen. Imagine waking up one day, years from now, and realizing you never lived the life you were meant to because you kept handing over the steering wheel to fear, doubt, and distraction. Now, let me ask you, brutally honestly, is your life really in your hands? Or is that just a comforting illusion? We all say we're in control, but if life had a dashboard, how many of your buttons are being pressed by someone else's expectations, by society's deadlines, or worse, your own excuses? You see, there's a moment, a single, terrifyingly honest second when we confront the quiet truth that no one's coming to fix it, no miracle is on the calendar, and the clock doesn't negotiate. And right then, we either wake up or we drift deeper into the lie. Have you ever laughed nervously when someone said, "You can be anything you want," and then secretly panicked because deep down you didn't even know what you wanted anymore? That's the glitch in your system, and tonight we're pulling the wires out one by one because on the other side of this, if you dare to stay with me through it, there's a version of you waiting that finally knows how to drive. Taking responsibility is the first step toward true freedom. It's a statement that sounds simple, even obvious, but in reality, it's one of the hardest truths we ever face. From a young age, we're often conditioned to look outward when things go wrong. We blame the teacher for our bad grades, the coach for not picking us, the system for being unfair, or our circumstances for holding us back. And while some of those things may very well be true, the moment we allow them to become the reason we stop trying, stop growing, or stop believing, we hand over our power. Responsibility isn't about guilt or blame, it's about ownership. It's about standing up, looking in the mirror, and saying, "This is my life, and what I do with it is on me." Most people are afraid of responsibility because it feels heavy, it feels like pressure. But what if that pressure is actually a gift? Think of it like gravity. It might weigh you down, but it also keeps you grounded, focused, connected to reality. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for someone else to rescue you or choose you. You realize that the world doesn't owe you anything, and that's a good thing because it means you're free to build, to create, to fight for what you want without asking anyone's approval. It means the ceiling of your life is no longer determined by other people's limitations. Responsibility shifts the narrative from "I can't because of them" to "I can in spite of them." And that shift, that's where freedom begins. When you accept full responsibility for your life, you start to reclaim lost time. You stop wasting hours on regret, wishing you'd done things differently. Instead, you focus on what's possible now. You stop giving away your energy to things you can't control, and instead pour it into the things you can. You start setting boundaries, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You become more intentional with your time, your relationships, your energy. And perhaps most importantly, you develop something few people truly have: integrity. You say what you mean and do what you say. You stop hiding behind excuses and start building a life that reflects your values, not your fears. Of course, responsibility doesn't mean life becomes easy. In fact, it often becomes more challenging. Because now, when you mess up, you can't blame anyone else. Now, when things don't go your way, you have to reflect instead of react. But here's the truth: difficulty isn't a punishment, it's a path. The most fulfilled people you know aren't the ones who've had it easy. They're the ones who chose to grow through what they went through. They chose not to let pain become paralysis. They didn't wait for someone else to write their story. They picked up the pen, even when their hands were shaking. That's the kind of freedom responsibility offers. Not a life without hardship, but a life without helplessness. Think about someone you admire, truly admire. It's likely not just their success that impresses you, but the way they carry themselves, the way they show up in the world. That posture, that confidence, that direction, it all comes from responsibility. Because when you take responsibility, you build resilience. You stop fearing failure because you realize it's not fatal. You stop avoiding discomfort because you know it's where growth lies. You stop playing small because you understand that you weren't born to live in fear, but to move through it with courage. Responsibility becomes a kind of compass. It points you back to your power every time life tries to throw you off course. And let's be real, there will be moments when it's tempting to quit. to slide back into blame, into the comfort of victimhood. It feels safer, doesn't it? When things go wrong, it's so much easier to say, "It's not my fault," than it is to say, "What can I learn from this?" But here's the paradox. The more you avoid responsibility, the more trapped you become. Because if it's always someone else's fault, then you're always waiting for them to change before you can be free. That's not freedom, that's dependency in disguise. True freedom is when you realize you have the power to change, no matter what anyone else does. Responsibility gives your life direction. It takes all the noise, all the confusion, and helps you focus on what actually matters. It silences the part of you that's addicted to drama, chaos, and distraction. It teaches you that discipline isn't punishment, it's self-respect. That consistency isn't boring, it's how you build trust with yourself. And that freedom isn't about doing whatever you want, it's about becoming the kind of person who knows exactly what they want and is willing to do what it takes to get there. Excuses build walls, ownership builds doors. Every time we make an excuse, we're laying another brick in the barrier between us and the life we say we want. It doesn't happen all at once, it's subtle, even quiet. You miss one opportunity and blame the timing. You avoid a hard conversation and justify it by saying it wouldn't have made a difference. You procrastinate and blame the lack of motivation, not realizing you're building a fortress around your potential brick by brick. Excuses feel comfortable because they take the weight off our shoulders. They make us feel safe. But that safety is deceptive. It's the kind of safety that comes from locking yourself inside a prison of your own making. We all do it. It's human. We all have moments where we don't feel ready, moments where fear whispers in our ears that we're not enough, not capable, not prepared, and instead of confronting that fear head on, we dress it up in excuses. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have the time. I'll start next week. We convince ourselves that we're being rational, but deep down we know we're stalling. We're hesitating. We're hiding. And the longer we live in that space, the more we start to believe our own lies. The more we repeat our excuses, the more they harden into beliefs. And those beliefs become the invisible walls that keep us stuck. But here's the thing, ownership does the opposite. Ownership is what tears those walls down and starts carving out doors. It's the uncomfortable, often painful decision to say, "This happened, and I'm responsible for what comes next." Ownership doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means you recognize that your response is always within your control. You may not have chosen the storm, but you choose how you walk through it. You may not control every variable in life, but you do control whether you react or respond, whether you complain or create. And in that choice lies power. Taking ownership forces you to stop waiting. It removes the illusion that something or someone outside of you is going to change your life. No one's coming. No magic moment is going to arrive where everything suddenly makes sense and all your dreams start falling into place. You have to be the one to move. And that's scary, but it's also liberating. Because when you stop waiting, you start building. When you take ownership, you unlock momentum. And momentum is everything. It's what separates dreamers from doers, talkers from achievers. It's the difference between living in theory and living in truth. There's a beautiful thing that happens when you start to own your actions, your mistakes, your journey. You begin to see possibilities instead of problems. You stop seeing failure as evidence that you're not good enough and start seeing it as proof that you're in the game, learning, growing, evolving. You stop fearing the unknown because you trust that whatever happens, you'll handle it. Ownership breeds confidence, not because you believe everything will go perfectly, but because you know you're not going to quit when it doesn't. You become dependable to yourself, and that kind of trust, self-trust, is what builds real, lasting confidence. People often talk about breakthroughs as if they happen in one dramatic moment. But the truth is, breakthroughs happen in the quiet decision to take ownership when it would be easier to make an excuse. It's in the early mornings when no one's watching. It's in the discipline to show up when it's inconvenient. It's in the refusal to blame even when you could. That's where character is built. That's where growth lies. That's where you stop building walls and start building doors, opportunities that only exist because you have the courage to take responsibility for creating them. Excuses feel good in the short term. They're like sugar for your ego, but they leave you empty. Ownership, on the other hand, is like fuel. It might burn at first, but it powers your movement. It moves you from stuck to strong, from confused to clear, from powerless to purposeful. When you take ownership, you're not just changing your results, you're changing who you are becoming. You're stepping into the driver's seat, choosing direction over drift, progress over perfection. It's not always glamorous, and it's definitely not always easy, but it's always worth it because it leads to something excuses never will: freedom, growth, and the kind of self-respect that can't be faked. Your choices, not your circumstances, define your future. This truth is both empowering and terrifying because it places the responsibility squarely in your hands. It means that no matter where you started, no matter how hard the road has been or how unfair the odds may seem, you still hold the pen to write your story. Circumstances can influence your path, no doubt. They can make things harder, delay progress, or test your strength. But they don't have the final word. Your future is not written in the environment you were born into, the mistakes you've made, or the setbacks you've faced. It's written in the decisions you make every single day, the habits you build, and the mindset you choose to carry forward. We live in a world that loves to define people by their past. Labels get stuck to us like glue: failure, dropout, too old, too young, unlucky, not enough. And over time, if we're not careful, we start to wear those labels like skin. But labels are not your destiny. Circumstances are not cages unless you decide to stop looking for the key. What separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is not luck or timing, it's choice. The choice to believe in possibility over limitation. The choice to act even when you're scared. The choice to take one small step forward when everything around you says it's easier to stay where you are. There are countless stories of people who have turned tragedy into triumph, pain into purpose, and adversity into advantage, not because life handed them a second chance, but because they chose to create one. They chose to take what they had, no matter how little, and build with it. That's the power of human will. That's the strength of conscious decision-making. The moment you stop waiting for circumstances to improve and start focusing on how you can improve your response to them, everything begins to shift. You stop being a product of what happened to you, and you start becoming the architect of what happens next. It's easy to look at others and think, they had it easier, or if I had what they had, I'd be successful too. But comparison blinds us to our own power. It tricks us into thinking our challenges disqualify us from greatness. The truth is, everyone has circumstances they didn't choose. What separates those who move forward is the decision not to be defined by them. Your past is a chapter, not the whole book. Your environment is a setting, not the main character. The world will offer 1,000 reasons why you can't succeed. Your job is to choose the one reason you will. Sometimes choices are loud and life-changing: a career shift, a bold leap, a hard goodbye. But often they're quiet and consistent. Waking up an hour earlier to pursue a dream, choosing discipline over distraction, forgiving instead of holding on to bitterness, speaking up instead of staying silent. These micro decisions accumulate, they build character, they build momentum. And over time, they carve out a future that looks nothing like your present. Every choice you make is a vote for the kind of person you want to become, and enough votes in the right direction. That's how transformation happens. It's tempting to wait for better timing, more resources, a clearer sign, but waiting is also a choice, and often it's a choice that costs more than we realize. Time doesn't pause while we hesitate. Opportunities don't wait while we second guess. If you want a different future, you can't just hope for it, you have to decide for it. Decide to be the kind of person who acts with intention, who learns from failure, who adjusts when needed but never quits. Circumstances might have shaped your starting point, but they don't control your finish line. Life isn't fair, and it doesn't pretend to be, but it is responsive. It responds to courage, to persistence, to belief followed by action. And while you may not control every storm, you do control how you sail through it. That control, that choice, is the most powerful gift you have. It allows you to rise above, to pivot when needed, to endure when things fall apart, and to rebuild even stronger than before. The people who succeed in life are not the ones who had the smoothest journey, they're the ones who decided not to be passengers. They took the wheel even if the road was rough, even if the map wasn't clear, even if they were scared, because they understood that every step forward was a declaration: my future belongs to me, not to my circumstances. Control is not given, it's claimed through action. It's not something you stumble upon or something the world decides to hand you when you've earned it. Control isn't gifted. It's built, piece by piece, through decisions, through movement, through the choice to act when it would be easier to wait. The world will never pause and say, "Here, you're in charge now." That moment doesn't come. You have to rise into it. You have to claim it by refusing to be a bystander in your own life. That's what separates those who lead from those who follow, those who take control from those who keep waiting for it to be granted. There's a dangerous illusion that many people carry, a quiet assumption that if they just wait long enough, stay quiet enough, do what they're told, then eventually life will deliver the permission they're looking for. But it never does. The truth is, control lies on the other side of courage, and courage isn't about being fearless. It's about taking action while still afraid. Action is the line in the sand between being a spectator and being a player. You don't get to control every outcome, every response, or every challenge, but you do get to control your choices. And when you act intentionally, with purpose and clarity, you begin to take back authority over your own story. People often feel out of control because they've become passive in the areas of life that matter most. They tolerate unhealthy relationships, they accept soul-crushing routines, they stay silent when they should speak, and they play small to avoid judgment. Over time, that passivity becomes paralysis. But the moment you start taking action, even in small, imperfect steps, you begin to dismantle that helplessness. You don't wait for the perfect plan, you start with what you have. You don't wait to feel ready, you move despite the doubt. That's how you claim control. You take it back with every bold decision, every uncomfortable truth faced, every fear challenged head-on. There's something electric about action. Even when the outcome is uncertain, action creates momentum. It shakes you out of mental loops and emotional spirals. It reminds you that you are not stuck, you are simply waiting to move. When you stop waiting for the conditions to be ideal, you discover a truth that changes everything. Movement is the condition. You don't act because you feel powerful. You feel powerful because you act. That shift transforms not just your path, but how you see yourself. You start showing up differently. You stand taller. You speak with more clarity. You stop apologizing for wanting more because you're actively pursuing it. Control isn't about domination or certainty, it's about direction. It's about deciding that your life is too valuable to be lived on autopilot. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just dream, but executes. The kind of person who follows through. And yes, it's hard. Yes, you will make mistakes. Yes, there will be setbacks. But none of that takes away your ability to keep choosing. Action is never wasted. Even the wrong move teaches you something. It shows you where to pivot, what to avoid, and what to build on. And every lesson becomes another layer of the foundation you're standing on. Some people spend their lives collecting knowledge, waiting for the day they feel fully prepared. But knowledge without action is just weight, it doesn't move you. Wisdom isn't found in what you know, but in what you do with what you know. The difference between those who succeed and those who stagnate is rarely intelligence. It's execution. It's consistency. It's the refusal to let fear be louder than purpose. When you take action, you send a message to your brain, your soul, and the world. I am not powerless. I am not waiting to be chosen. I choose myself. I choose now. Claiming control through action also means taking responsibility for what you create. It means owning your wins and your losses. It means not blaming others when things go wrong, but instead asking, what can I learn? What can I change? That kind of accountability is uncomfortable, but it's also transformative. It builds resilience. It sharpens your instincts. It fuels self-respect. When you stop outsourcing your power, when you stop saying, if only, and start saying, what now, you discover a strength that can't be faked and can't be taken from you. In a world full of distractions, noise, and endless reasons to sit still, choosing to act is revolutionary. Choosing to show up again and again, despite the mess, despite the fear, despite the unknown, is how you claim control in a world that constantly tries to pull it from your hands. And in the process, you become something more than just a person reacting to life. You become a force shaping it, steering it, and boldly declaring that your story will be written on your terms.